Yes, of course, 22 days to the expiration of the deadline given by the federal government for all Nigerians, adults, to acquire the national identification number. From east to west, north to south, the story has remained the same. People crowding need centers to get their registration numbers. And the big question is, why should we allow this to happen in the midst of the fight against COVID-19, with the upsurge in the numbers on a daily basis? And of course, the federal government has said is a must for every adult Nigerian. In fact, yesterday, the story broke out that even diplomats are required to have name. But let's set the tempo for this discussion by welcoming our panelist. Bishop Osadolo Oche is the acting coordinator general of Edo Civil Society Organization. I don't know exactly what is the appropriate designation, but thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. I think I correct that first.
Okay.
I'm the interim tech chairman.
Interim tech chairman.
The executive council chairman.
Okay.
Not coordinator general.
Okay. Edo Civil Society Organization. Thank you.
Yes.
And Christopher Ojekere is a programs officer, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change. Chris, thanks for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Sonny.
Okay, now let's look at, first and foremost, the intention behind the NIN registration. And we also have a record that is sometimes in 2014, this exercise was conducted. And some have also said that Nigerians, being who we are, we like to respond late to things. We like to do things at the 11th hour. If everyone had done this registration at that time, we probably would be where we are today. What do you know about this, Chris?
All right. First of all, to the intention or the policy for name registration. It's, of course, a very laudable policy, which is long overdue for a country like Nigeria, especially with the kind of security challenges that we have. Because the whole idea of the number is for every citizen to have an identification number with which you can transact all activities and all businesses that has to do with you identifying yourself as required by either government or corporate organization or even international agencies. So the entire idea was to have people have that number. That number will be fed into a national identity database, which is a national, so to speak, bank for recognizing all the citizens within the country. It will help in demographic planning. It will help in economic planning. It will help even in political planning, delineations, and all of that. It will help in job, employment, policies and all of that. So it's a laudable policy. It's wonderful. And as you pointed out when you were talking, it's been there for many years. It's been there for 2014. I think I did mine around 2017. I think 2017 is when I did mine. Now, the point is, you have a situation where in Nigeria, the government of the day suddenly sees a reason why he has to emphasize a particular policy and then does not pursue it to the end. And citizens are not as educated as, a few of us are. So that, first of all, they don't even understand the reason for that policy. And let us assume that they do understand the kind of hiccups, the kind of problems, the kind of bottlenecks, the kind of hassles they have to go to just get themselves identified as Nigerians, to get themselves recognized as Nigerians. Some people give up. I remember that in that 2014, or even before 2014, around 2004, 2003, 2004, there was this attempt to also have a kind of national identity. I remember that at that time, at the registration centers, it was being sold. And people just got fed up and left. That's when I should have got my first national identity card. It was that frustration that took me away from the you have to pay money, to get the form to fill. And I said, how can I pay money to be identified? I'm born Nigerian. I know where I come from. Now, it was until 2017, I did mine when there wasn't rush. There wasn't any particular deadline. and any particular need now. The reason why you have this kind of crowd and this kind of, hustle to get it now is not because people understand better the overall intention, which I have just stated. It is because of the fact that it's now tied to your telephone number. And that telephone number, the government should know that telephone number, the people here now, almost all of them, if not all of them, have telephone numbers.
Yes.
Now, these people were able to get their telephone numbers without this kind of hassles.
Absolutely.
So if a private organization like MTN, Glo, and so on could organize, and people have their telephone numbers without this kind of hassles, why are we having the kind of thing we are seeing on the screen now? The simple point is that the government have no respect for its citizens. I don't see any reason. I just read that the minister said we should have 20 registration points in Abuja. For God's sake, Abuja alone should have nothing less than about 200 registration points. If you are serious about what you are doing, why do you make things difficult for the citizens? It is to go and get an identification number. You can decentralize as much as possible. Why are banks not giving out names? The banks, if the banks are not secure, why are the banks? The banks are banks registered by CBN.
Yeah.
They are corporate organizations empowered by Nigerian law.
Also regulated
regulated by CBN. And they are able to give out bank account numbers, which are secure. They are able to give out BVN, which are secure. Why can't bank register their customers in the various banks? Why don't we decentralize this? JAM register students every year online now.
Yeah.
Why are these things so difficult? Why do people have to gather like this and struggle? And now, can you see anybody there wearing face masks apart from the man who is interviewing them? Nobody is wearing face masks. And we are talking about COVID-19. That's why people don't take government policies serious. Because you are dealing with two very essential, important things within the same time. And for one, you are compromising the regulation for the other. And then you think people are going to believe that there is COVID-19, and you government are emphasizing the number of COVID-19 cases that is rising every day, and you make them gather in front of anywhere, for God's sake, and they are pushing against each other to get in and get a number. And they are going to believe you. So that's the problem. The overall intention is wonderful, but as always, we always want to, mess up every good thing in this country.
Bishop Osadolo Oche, what are your perspectives?
Thank you very much. Like my brother said, he said it's for security. I want to say that is far from it. It's not for security.
The intention is not for security.
No. One, kidnapper does not use their phone number to make a contact. When you are kidnapped, they use your own to contact your people. Where is the security? So if they are talking of security, I'm saying that this is far from security. It's a misplaced priority. Two, the government have told us that it's COVID-19 pandemic and the number is rising. And Edo State government, for instance, have said schools should be shut down from primary, even from KG to the tertiary institutions
till February 1st, yes.
Federal government have said schools should reopen today. Then where is the coordination of governance? Now, because of COVID, it's enough for us to say this program should be suspended. Or you do it at your comfort, if it is necessary. But unfortunately today, government have decided to tie it to so many things. And the institutions in Nigeria have become lawmaker to themselves. I've heard of immigration saying if you don't have NIM number, you will not obtain passport and you will not renew your passport. I've heard of federal road safety saying without NIM number, you cannot obtain driver license and you cannot renew. I've heard the central bank directing banks that without a NIM number, you will not open a bank account and you may not likely operate your bank account. These institutions, for God's sake, have no constitutional role to play in the issue of communication. They don't have it. The act that established Nigeria or National Communication Commission did not also give Nigerian Communication Commission the authority to regulate my own telephone. The Constitution provides that my telephone is my private property, like your laptop, that nobody has power to search or to confiscate it, except with a warrant. The Nigerian Communication is only entitled to regulate network providers and not my own telephone as a user.
Okay.
The bank, the central bank or the bank generally, the NIM itself, Nigeria Identification Management Commission, yeah. The Federal Road Safety and others don't have any relationship with SIM card or telephone. It's an aberration. 2, it is only yesterday now they came up again to say if you are a foreigner and you want to stay in Nigeria for 3 months, you go to NIM office to go and obtain NIM number. One, most of us travel. I have traveled to 15 countries and I have almost 11 SIM cards. Any country you travel to, because you want to communicate with your people at home, or if you are being sponsored by an office organization, you should be able to tell them the situation of things you met. I have arrived, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. And you are allowed to go to a SIM card seller or center to obtain your SIM card. The only thing they take as at now is to take your biometrics and your photograph. Nobody refers you to their identification office, because NIM is to say that you are a Nigerian. That is the identification. It's not security. That is the purpose. I have declared that I'm a Nigerian. And if you are not giving a foreigner who wants to stay 3 months an identification and he will leave after 2 days, are you now saying that he should have dual nationality? What of those who are going to stay 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks? They will not be entitled to make communication, because your law now that you are giving to yourself, these institutions have taken the position of National Assembly to make law for themselves and become an institution and authority. It will be resisted.
Okay, let me pause it there for a moment. Chris, I heard you mention some of the possible ways we can do this exercise without necessarily crowding the NIM registration centers. And I saw in one of the reports, one of the papers that I highlighted this morning talked about absolute, facilities at NIM registration centers stalling the registration exercise. Recently, we read stories about their officials going on strike because of their exposures to COVID-19 and several other demands. Let's look at this.
Okay. Now, before then, we need to clear some things, that the bishop said, so that the public, does not misunderstand. Now, I think the bishop is talking about the effectiveness of the policy measure.
Yes.
Now, I was dealing with the policy measure as a policy paper.
Yeah.
As a policy paper, it is for identification.
Yes.
And identification has implicating ancillaries, one of which is security.
Yeah.
That it can help the security agencies to be able to identify a Nigerian, and not just to identify a Nigerian, but where a Nigerian is at a particular time. That's how it helps with security issues. If you have a fraud case, for instance, and there's a trans-border problem, for instance, you are able to identify how many of them are Nigeria in collusion with how many of them are from the Republic of Benin, and so on and so forth. And if we go into that statement, the matter of security, I agree with him totally that we are yet to see, perhaps after the registration, we can begin to see the effectiveness of his security, implications. But we are yet to see how that works. Now, he said something which is very important, that when you travel out of the country, they take your biometrics. They don't require you to go to NIM office. The reason is because they already have a national database, which is what this is supposed to pursue. so that the moment they take your biometrics, those information you are thinking that they will ask you to go and get somewhere have already reflected.
Yeah.
Before you enter the country, your information will be sent abroad, and they have it there in their database. So the moment they put your fingerprint, your entire information appears, and they know whether you are fit to be in that country or not. So all of this should be the intention. Should be, as I said,
yeah.
And we hope that the government will pursue to a logical conclusion. Yeah, but back to the points that you raised.
Yes.
I don't see any reason. I don't see any. You see, there is no reason why you develop a system to frustrate your citizens. The reason why you have people thinking through a plan is so that you'll be able to make it as easy for everybody and as dignifying and honorable for everybody. And that is why you sit down. You don't just write policy on paper and throw it to the press. You sit down with whichever decision makers that you have, whether it's the Federal Executive Council or whatever decision makers that you have, or State Executive Council, as in the case of the state, and you think your policy through. You anticipate all the hiccups with respect to your particular environment, culture, and society. And we know that we have a huge population in Nigeria. We also know that a huge number of this population operates, what we call it, telephone lines.
Yeah.
And so that when you are beginning to think about linking NIM numbers to telephone numbers, you already have an idea of the size of people you are going to be dealing with. So I expected that you would have agencies. So I use the bank as an example. I use JAMB as an example. All the youths within the JAMB category can be captured by JAMB. In fact, JAMB can capture everybody with the data machines, with the biometric machine that they have. And so if you have such decentralized offices that are government-owned agencies, mark you, JAMB is government-owned agencies, and the banks are regulated by the central bank. Yes. Now, it already gives a measure of a level of security because they're operating within the system. So you can use them for this kind of registration, and then you won't have to experience all of this hiccup. Now, to the strike and all that you are having, it's just sabotage. To have such internal problems. The point is, you cannot ever get a transparent, information system within our society, and it leaves room for a lot of conspiracy theory. You will just wonder whether those people suddenly woke up at that time to realize that they had all those problems in the commission, and then they went on strike. And so the government suddenly is talking about a deadline, as if we don't have this deadline by so date, Nigerians will not be registered. And I begin to wonder, what is such haste for this deadline? Why can't we phase it? Why can't we break it down and then extend it? Why is such the haste for the deadline? Now, what's the real purpose? If you want to identify Nigerians are willing to be identified. But for God's sake, as he said, let them do it at convenient time. And if you face it, that's what you are going to achieve. So to begin to crowd people like this has no justification whatsoever. That's my point.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, you want to build on that, yeah.
I have the privilege of visiting 3 NIM centers. And the last was the day the strike commenced, last week Friday, or last 2 weeks Friday. And the complaint is that they are exposed to danger. There is no provision for their safety, no hazard allowance, no kit to protect them. And they also went further to say one of their staff have contacted COVID-19, and they decided to down tools. Only for Monday for them to say they are coming back, and they have given them only face masks. And in these centers, they have 1 laptop, and some of them complain that laptop has been there since 2014. It's obsolete. Now you want us to use 1 laptop for a local government. I understand that in the whole of Igwe Bena, there is no center they are going to Ekpoma and Dunromia
to register.
You want all these people to climb there, old and young, and some are already sleeping there. Some leave home by 4 a.m. to be able to get number. And from our investigation, people have taken undue advantage of this urgency to begin to sell it and have agents within the office who they give funds to go and sell on their behalf. and bring back to them so that they give you number and call you to come and capture your biometrics. That is where it has led us to. Now, going by the regulation of the Nigerian Communication Commission and the network providers, I have done my biometrics in one of my line 5 times.
5 times.
5 times. I have done my second line 3 times. My third line 3 times. My fourth line once. What are all these biometrics all about? What is the urgency? Why can't they refer themselves back to MTN, Glo, and other network providers to get my biometrics? I have BVM. My biometrics are captured by BVM. My phone number is also there. I have voters, permanent voters card. My biometrics are captured there. I have international passport. My biometrics now is passport. I have the first passport. When they say they are no longer going to use that, when I want to travel, I went to obtain another one. And I have my biometrics. Why can't they harmonize all these things than exposing us to this kind of danger? So, for me, like I said from day one, it's not for purpose of fighting security. I'm not saying that obtaining NIM is bad. I'm saying that the urgency attached to it is evil, not only just being bad. You are going to expose us to the COVID-19 you are advertising. And those who cannot capture COVID-19 will capture pneumonia or what do you call this cough now?
Maybe they'll capture COVID-21.
21 or 22. So our elderly people, the new propaganda is that those of us who are above 60 years and above, we should stay in our house. We should not come out. If I stay in my house, what provisions have government made for my welfare, for my feeding? What is the provision? You just make law because you hear people make law and without thinking of the consequences of the law you are making. That's why nobody obeys law. We have a lot of good laws and evil laws. But because the intention is always evil, that is why Nigerians are not obeying.
Yeah, but under the circumstance,
so under this circumstance,
we can't say the intention is evil. Except the implementation has not been perfect.
Yes,
from
the level of
implementation,
both with the implementation and you are saying we are going to do this thing, that is the foundation of the evil. Because if you have good thought and plans, you'll be able to space it out that we can do it at our convenience. Not allowing every agency to become a law to himself. And that is why we are going to court very soon to restrain them.
Okay, let's check this story out on Guardian newspaper, today's edition. It says, outdated NIMC facilities stalling NIN SIM linkage. I'll do a short, I'll read a short excerpt from that story. Telecoms operators say it makes it difficult to measure progress. Decries slow back-end integration with NIM facilities. Federal government stops enrollment at Abuja NIM office. With about 22 days to the February 9 deadline for the enrollment, verification and linking of the national identification numbers NIN to subscriber identification modules, SIM cards, telecoms operators have raised the alarm over the challenge they have with a back-end integration of the National Identity Management Commission. The Guardian gathered that one of the reasons many subscribers had not received any confirmation from their network operators after submitting their NINs is because there has been no seamless confirmation from the back end of NIN. In other words, for every NIN registered by Nigerians and sent to telecoms operators, the service providers are expected to confirm the authenticity, that is the verification of the owner from the back end of NIN. But according to one of the technical officials of MTN, for example, this has remained a very huge challenge. The House of Representatives, against this background, is calling for the suspension of this exercise. Is this justifiable, weighing it with the intention and what Nigeria stands to gain when eventually it is fully implemented, as it were, Chris?
Well, what you have just read now is that there's no exercise going on. Because what is exercise? Exercise is that the telecom providers
Yes.
get your number, your NIM number,
Yes.
and then confirm with NIMC, the National Identity Management Commission. What it does appear now is that they have not even been able to confirm any number, I mean, from the story.
Yes.
And if they have confirmed any, it will be very few. So few that it's completely
Insignificant,
negligible.
yeah.
Yes. So now what that simply means is that there's no exercise going on. And this has been what has bedeviled every good policies in this country, implementation. I don't know whether it's as a result of incompetence. Now he has just given us a list of biometrics that he has done in the same country. And you don't have a national database that can coordinate between your BVN and your telephone number and your national passport and all of that. And that is what we thought this was going to do. But it does appear now that even those of us who have done NIM, and thought that we are solidly, having NIM numbers, it might just end up that we'll be asked to go and redo a new name and then begin to submit numbers again. That's what it does appear, because if they are unable to confirm, if the NIM number we have are supposed to be in the database of at least NIM, since we don't have a national database.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is to say, okay, you send us that your database. And then because it's electronics and it's automated, the moment they put in your name, it will pop up in the system with all your biometrics and all your information.
Yeah.
And then they will just confirm that and send to you and say, confirm,
Yeah.
confirm. And they are right. Since we said we've not got any confirmation, and I don't know if anybody around you says, we've just got the confirmation that they have received.
Including you.
Yes. We've just got the confirmation that they have received. Yes. But no confirmation that
there's
they
a
have
linkage.
confirmed that the number is actually authentic. Are you following me?
Yes.
So you have just seen the problem, and you are seeing the problem when the government has given a deadline. If the government didn't give any deadline, it is very unlikely that you will have the providers crying out now. They would have just allowed it go away because they know that that's how everything in Nigeria ends. But there's a deadline, and we are soon going to start shouting that it is just a few days to the deadline and we do not have any this thing. And then what the government will have to look into this very seriously, because it does seem now that there's no exercise. Now so much has been wasted. As he said, so many people have been exposed to the COVID-19 pandemic, judging by the way they are crowding them in one place. It's not apart from the COVID-19 pandemic, people can even drop there. Have you seen the energy with which people are struggling to get forward, to be able to get that? So fatigue, everything is setting in, and after you do that for 3 days, the fourth day you'll be discouraged.
Couldn't this have been avoided if Nigerians had responded to this call, I think sometime in 2024, when this registration exercise took place?
You said 2024, you mean 2014?
I mean 2014.
Yes.
Yes. If that response that we're seeing here was what we saw then, couldn't this been avoided?
I said earlier,
Yes.
that government comes up with a policy. See, government must know that you are ruling over your citizens. You are not ruling over American citizens or British citizens that have had the privilege of getting so much awareness, education, and enlightenment that by just pushing things into the press, the entire citizen will be educated. We have a huge percentage of uneducated citizenry. And we have a huge percentage of citizens that are not aware. And then when they become aware, your officials, what was their attitude in the terms of implementation? Even this one, let us forget those who didn't do in 2014. Even this one that citizens have decided to do, how seamlessly and how freely and how easily and conveniently are they able to do it? In 2014, if we had responded the same way, you have the same situation. So it is not excusable to say, well, if they have started to do it in 2014, I'm not trying to give an excuse to the citizenry. But if you had these centers open since 2014, and you have been announcing since 2014 that people should go and do their name, and they have centers they can identify as name registration centers, and then they go there and it's done seamlessly. That okay, because they are few, as soon as they enter there, they do their biometric, within 5 minutes, everything is captured and you go. People would have continued to do it. Government would have continued to emphasize it. And people would have continued to do it. But after this exercise, for instance, if it fails now, and you come in a few years' time and say they should come and do this kind of exercise, this becomes a reference point. They say, oh, that's how it happened the other time. They gave us even 22nd February.
Okay. Yes. You said you have the NIM card.
Yes, I have.
Have you been able to look at that, your NIM card, that it has expiration date?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No, it hasn't.
You see the thing?
It has.
Why we are going to court?
Oh, you are going to court?
Yes, I'm going to court.
Why are you going to court?
First, they have told us that there is COVID-19. We should do physical and social distancing. And what you are saying there is not social and physical distancing. We have registered our SIM so many times that is enough for government to sit down and say, let's harmonize and get the biometrics they are looking for. When they want to do voter registration, they have registration centers that people can walk to easily and go and do their registration.
Every unit, every ward.
Every ward.
Yeah.
Now, they have put on that national identification number expiration date. The lifespan is 5 years. And you are only a Nigerian for 5 years. After 5 years, you are no longer a Nigerian. You now come back again to crowd like this. So there are so many things that is wrong that we must stop this until the government think are right to be able to do what is just and good for the citizenry. The citizens are not guinea pig. The citizens are not animals. The citizens are human beings that should be respected and be accorded recognition. So there are a lot of errors in the whole system because they just wake up and put a policy. Let me remind you of one thing again that is behind national identification number. If they miss Sonny Duke Okosun, D-U-K-E, and they said Sonny Duke, D-U-K, no E, when you are coming to correct it, you will pay 10,000 naira. And after 5 years, you will come back to renew it, you pay 15,000 naira to be a Nigerian citizen. And you mentioned here adult, that is for adult. My grandchildren, some are 16 years, some are 10 years, some are 14. They already have their own phone. So now that is 18 years, they should wait until they attain the age of 18 years
before they use
telephone in my own country. And you think we are advancing? Sonny, this week I'm going to court to stop it.
Okay. It's the TMI Monday, and reviewing all the reactions and counter-reactions that have trailed the National Identification Number registration, which of course has just about 22 days before it expires according to the federal government. But we saw just a few minutes ago on the Guardian newspaper what they told us is happening in Abuja. And then of course the lack of back end, so there could be a seamless linkage between the number and then of course your NIN, as it were, that is the NIN and of course your phone number. That's what we got from Guardian, from the reactions from some of the telecoms operators. Well, how is government going to deal with this issue is a big question. But there's this question that keeps popping up in my heart, which has to do with, someone said, okay, I think someone actually said that, well, maybe because the COVID-19 numbers in Nigeria is pretty low compared to what obtains in other crime, this is just maybe an attempt, all right? I don't know how to do that, but do you feel that way, in a sense, Chris?
I said if you are ineffective and inefficient and incompetent, you leave room for a lot of conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can't keep the mind from wandering, and minds are going to wander according to their level of orientation, and people are going to come up with theories from those levels of orientation. So if the idea is to swell the COVID-19 number so as to justify all the huge amounts we are getting from China and all the other people who say they want to help us and have not been able to help their people too well over there, then how do I defend that? Because the first thing you will expect is that if the government is so serious over the COVID-19 issue, now the first thing you would expect is that when you have centers like this, COVID-19 regulation will be strictly enforced, and nobody will be there without a face mask. But you are seeing huge number of people gathered together without face mask, and all rubbing against each other, pushing against each other without face mask. That is not an issue anymore, because we have to deal with one. We have to deal with meeting the deadline.
Yeah.
So the other issue, which is also supervised by the same federal government, is not an issue anymore. After we have got our 22nd deadline, then we'll now come back to COVID-19. I say for the next gathering, we are going to be gathering in social place. People should use their face mask because COVID-19 number is increasing. And you expect our citizens to take it serious? So the point is that people just see that government pursues an agenda that serves a particular purpose, its particular purpose, and and there's no commitment. You are not using it to motivate nationalism and patriotism, because people don't believe in your sincerity of purpose. So if somebody is going to come up with such conspiracy theory to say that it is because government wants to swell the COVID-19 number so as to justify a lot of, I have no argument against that kind of thinking, because you have created that scenario and created that room for that kind of assumptions.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But let's just take this as a tail out. Why we have this challenge of Nigerians waiting for the 11th hour to respond to policies? You also have this challenge of government on its own part not putting the right structures in place to implement policies. But when it comes to election, we see all of these policies working effectively and efficiently. Why is this so, Bishop? Let me get to find out. What is the import of this kind of scenario in governance and providing the right infrastructure and development for the people?
The issue is that the people in government in Nigeria are self-centered. They are only interested on things that will benefit them, and not things that will benefit the entire citizenry. When it comes to election, guidelines are rolled out. It is since last year they started announcing that INEC will commence new registration and update by February.
Yes.
They have given us enough time.
Yeah.
And when they are going to do it, they are going to go to UNIS to go and do it. In such places, people go at their pace and comfort. Now, when it comes to issues like this, that they know we are going to make money out of it, and by the time the citizens are frustrated, they will give up and they will not continue, we will stop it at that level. Meanwhile, government have invested huge sums of money. So Nigerians in government are the first witch and wizard that we have. Like a pastor said.
How do you know? Have you caught them?
Yes, I have caught them.
Have you caught the witches and wizards?
Yes, I have.
Oh, really?
Let me tell you, yes. The one we were suspecting before are no longer capable of harming us as Nigerians. Because prayers are going on every day, every morning, every afternoon, every night. But we have not been able to capture this new witch that have come into the Nigerian system. Look at all our rules. They are death trap. Somebody, every week you hear in the Federal Executive Council meeting, so billion have been approved for so road, for so railway, for so thing. Where are those rules? Where is the money?
They'll be eaten by the witches and wizards.
The witches and wizards have taken it and ensure that when you drive on those highways, you will have accident. Then the kidnappers have also taken advantage of it, that no matter how good your car is, you must slow down when you come to that point. So they kidnap you. The Federal Road Safety, who ought to be saying the road should be safe, has also taken advantage of it to say no matter how good or the level of your speed, when you come to the pothole or the well on our Nigerian road, you must slow down so that they will hold you. And they are asking you roadworthiness, asking you of all the things that will make you to be safe. Whereas the road is safe, it's not good for the Nigerian citizen. The hospital, somebody has the money to buy drugs, but they have told us there is no Panadol in the presidential clinic. If there is no Panadol or paracetamol in presidential clinic. How do you think in the hospital in Egbanke there will be paracetamol to treat people? Last, not quite long, this December, a woman delivered 5 children and they all died. If there was good hospital, good doctors, in the whole of Orion will have only one doctor for Oronigbe Hospital, Abudu Hospital, Egbanke General Hospital. How will the man be effective?
Okay.
So
Chris,
that is the new one.
Chris, let me get a final word from you.
You see, for the election cycle, they will tell you that if you do not follow the cycle, you are going to have a constitutional crisis, because you have to. You can't have vacuum in government.
Yeah.
And so they use that as an excuse to concentrate all resources to ensure that the election cycle runs smoothly. And thank God, at least they're able to get that right, you know. But these other points, there's no constitutional crisis if NIM stop now. The only thing you are going to have is a policy failure. The next government will start again with its own idea. So it brings us back to this continuity in government. We are not able to differentiate what are policies that are for Nigeria and individual policy of a particular government that is innovative. Now, NIM identity, for instance, is a national policy, or should be a national policy, that concerns every Nigerian. And Nigerians are the stakeholders in that policy. But the government treats it with levity. And the citizens think that that government, you know, where he has done the next government comes. So that's why we have all this.
It becomes a vicious circle.
Yeah, it becomes a vicious circle. And that's why you find that things are starting and not ending. But you can't treat elections like that, because elections have to be done.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Christopher Jekere, thank you so much. Bishop Osadolowo Ochei. Well, this new witches and wizards that you have discovered, you need to deal decisively with them.
Exactly.
So our roads will be better.
Yeah.
Hospital, at least the hospital in my village in Ile, Ekboma, will be better.
Yes.
And the one in Chris's village in
Onwa
will be better.
will be better.
Anyway, thank you. It's the TMI Monday with yours sincerely. We hope that the authorities in charge will actually look at this issue dispassionately and do something urgent. We can't be saying that the numbers for COVID-19 is rising by the day, over 1,000 on a daily basis. And then on the other hand, we're encouraging people to go to needs centers to get crowded and no social distancing, expose themselves to get the virus. Who knows? Many people may have contracted the virus in the last couple of weeks or days since this exercise started. And of what benefit is that to them and to the country, or to the state as it were? So we hope that the call by the House of Representatives will be heeded and something will be done urgently. As you know, schools were supposed to resume today. In some states, there is a postponement. In some other states, well, schools have been asked to resume. So all of these are the key issues that are threatening the society right now. When we return after the break, we'll look at governance and social security. Our guests are already in the studio. I want to say big thanks to Chris and Bishop Osadolowo Ochei one more time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
God bless you for
We'll take a short break. It's TTMI Monday with yours sincerely. We'll be right back.